Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Hope that you are fine. Today we are going to continue, or actually we're going to reach the last stop in our journey through Oliver Twist and his life. Today we are going to start chapter 12, and let me remind you with what happened on chapter 11. But before we start, please go and bring your study book and then open page 53. Okay, we have reached the point that Mr. Brownlow made monks sign a piece of paper that telling everything about what happened with Oliver Twist, starting from his mother's marriage until the moment that they were talking about. And then let's see what happened on chapter number 12 for the murders die. Before we start, please let me go through the main points on slide number 2 very quickly. Are you with me? Okay. So Toby was hiding in an old house where Sykes came to him. The police caught Wagon and the Dodger. Charlie knew about the murder of Nancy. He fought with Sykes for that reason. Sykes wanted to escape from the crowds, but accidentally, please, here is an important word. Accidentally means by coincidence, wasn't intended, something that happened without planning for it. But accidentally he hanged himself on the roof of the building. Wagon was hanged, monks died in America. Mr. Brownlow took Oliver to live with him, and he made him his son. Of course, this is give you a general idea about the happy ending that Oliver have already had during his life. And let's see what happened on chapter number 12. The robber Toby was hiding in an old house by the river in Bermondsey. He was staring at an exhausted white dog. Why has Belle's dog come here? Is Belle coming here? Does the dog know this? And after a while, Sykes was entered the house. His face was pale and white, and he just noticed that the dog arrived to the house of Toby first. And when the dog just felt Sykes around, he started to howl. And howl here is the sound that the dog can do, or a noise that dog can do when it feels pain or fear, okay? Toby took a candle and went downstairs, and then he let Sykes go into the house. Sykes asked Toby, is Wagon got caught by the police? And then Toby said to him, me and Charlie got away, but they caught Wagon and the Dodger, but the Dodger has turned to be the king's evidence. Please, I want all of you to highlight or underline this word, the king's evidence. What does it mean, the king's evidence? It means that when the Dodger is a criminal, and when he caught by the police, he has told the police and the court all about the crimes and all information that he knows about the gang. He told them everything. He gave them evidences. He gave them all the details about the crimes that they did. So the punishment will be not very heavy as the rest of the gangs. So he will get punished. For example, they will be hanged, but for him, he is going to go to the prison. So his punishment will be a little bit lighter than the rest. Okay, so let's see and continue what happened. Toby didn't answer. Sykes said, then Wagon will be hanged. Toby didn't answer. Hell's fire, have you nothing to say to me? Are you going to tell me the police about me? Or are you going to help me? Toby said, you can stay here. There was another knock at the door, but Toby went downstairs quickly. He returned with Charlie Bates. Charlie, Sykes said, standing up, don't you remember your friend Belle? Don't come near me. And he just told Bill Sykes cruelly that you are a murderer. You just killed the kind lady or the kind girl that we were dealing with, which was Nancy. And the boy began to shout loudly, murder, help, murder, help, here is the murderer, we are having a murderer. He's trying to make his voice louder and louder and louder. Sykes grabbed the boy, but Charlie went on shouting. There was noise outside the house. Toby ran to the window and looked down. There were lights and the sound of footsteps coming nearer. Help, help, shrieked the boy. Shrieked here means screaming with very loud voice. shrieked the boy. He is here. The murderer is here. Break down the door, please. Help me. Rescue me. Sykes dragged the boy upstairs into the room near the top of the house. He locked the door, then he went back downstairs. Is the front door locked? He asked Toby. Yes, it is. Sykes ran to the window and looked down to the street below. You won't get me, he shouted to the people below. You won't catch Bill Sykes. I'm not going to give you the chance to get me and say, here is the murderer, and we here catch the murderer. He got a little bit mad. He got a little bit becoming very nervous and very angry and very bad-tempered. And although you know that Sykes is a bad-tempered person, but actually he became nearer to be a mad person. The crowd shouted at him. Some people wanted to burn the house down, and some people wanted to climb up and catch him. Sykes moved away from the window. I am going to jump into the ditch behind the house, Sykes said. He picked up some rope, ran upstairs and out onto the roof. The roof here means the top of any building. When you reach the top of any building, so this is the roof. Charlie looked through a window and watched Sykes climb onto the steep roof. He began to shout to the crowd of people again. Go to the back of the house. Sykes is on the roof, the boy cried. Sykes ran across the roof of the house and he looked down at the ditch. The ditch carried water from the river. Actually, the ditch here something like very small and narrow channel moving water, but it's very, very deep. There was not much water in the ditch at this time, and the soft mud was a little bit deep. There was a crowd of people at the back of the house now, and they were carrying lanterns. Sykes saw the angry faces staring up at him, so he looked up. The houses on the other side of the ditch were full of people. There were people looking at him from every window. Here were people everywhere, and he will not be safe. Sykes tied one end of the rope to the chimneys and he made a noose. So what does it mean, the word noose? A piece of rope that is tied into a circle. A noose in a rope can be pulled tight around something. It's something like a circle or something like this. You use the rope in order to make a circle, just to throw it in order to be hanged on something or to be put on something to fix the strength of the rope. So at the other end of the rope, he was going to put this round his body and climb down the ditch. Sykes put the noose over his head. He was going to pull the noose down under his arms, but suddenly he turned around. Her eyes. I can see her eyes, Sykes cried. Here, she's coming. She's looking at me. She's very angry. She's covered with blood. Of course, you know who is she, right? Yes, exactly. She was Nancy, and he's trying to imagine something that's not existing. I told you before that he became near to being a mad person. So he stepped back and fell off the roof without complete putting the noose down his body. So the noose stopped at this point, and then accidentally or by coincidence, he got hanged himself on the roof. As he fell, the noose pulled tight and the murderer hung there dead. Bill's eyes had followed Sykes onto the roof with a howl. The dog tried to jump onto the dead man's shoulders, but the dog fell from the roof and it died in the ditch below. Vagan was alone in the convent cells. It was Sunday, Vagan's last day. As the hours passed, the old man shrieked and tore his hair with his hands. Actually, Vagan also became a mad person when the hour that they decided to hang him became nearer and nearer. The old man screamed without any reason. The old man tried to pull his hair like this and to cut it with his hands. Vagan walked around and around his small cell. He howled like an animal, doing or making noises or voice like an animal, but still the hours passed. Night came, but he couldn't sleep. The clock struck 11. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, he would die. Vagan thought of the murder of Nancy. He thought of the death of Bill Sykes. Every single one that he caused to be dead, even by coincidence or without interfering into this matter, 12 o'clock struck, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and finally here is the 8 o'clock. The cell door opened, Wagon was let out to be hanged. A great cry went up from the waiting crowd. There was silence. Then there was another cry, shout of joy. Wagon was dead. Wagon was already dead. Monks left England and went to America. He died in prison. Mr. Brownlow bought a house in Chertsey near the Maylies' house. He took Oliver into his home, and Oliver became his son. And here we have reached the end of our novel. And here, let me tell you something which is very important. Maybe Oliver Twist is not very much a cheerful story, but actually it's a very, very, very valuable story, because it told us that whatever you want to do, whatever the evil inside you, you are the only one who will be able to control the evil or the bad things inside you. You can control them to make them vanish, or you can feed them until these things became bigger and bigger and they control your life and they made you something or some person which is very bad. Through this story, you found the different categories from the characters, starting from monks who wasn't poor to steal, or who wasn't poor to be a murderer, who wasn't poor to be someone who is bad, and Wagon, Toby, and Sykes, and Nancy. You can find in every character of them the power of charity, the power of being a good or the power of being an evil person. Exactly like Nancy, she started as an evil one, or she was made to be an evil person, but actually the good inside her was much more than the evil side, and she controlled the evil inside her, and she decided to make something to help Oliver Twist, the poor child, and actually she paid her life as a price for this help, but she was really happy for finally getting free from this bad life that she got. For Wagon, Toby, and Bill Sykes, and also the Dodger and Charlie Bates, all the gang, they deserved what happened to them, the bad things that happened to them, because they let the evil person inside them to control their life, and they tried to hurt the others around them. And you also can find Mr. Brownlow, Mrs. Maylie, and Oliver Twist are the persons that got the happy end at the end of the story. Please move with me to slide number 3 in order to check the oral questions to link all the events of the chapter together. Where was Toby hiding? When was Wagon caught? What happened to Bullseye at the end? Bullseye here is the dog, and we said that the dog was already dead because he tried to get onto the Bill Sykes' shoulder, but actually he couldn't got the balance of himself or of itself, and it fell down to the ditch and died there. Will Wagon be hanged? Yes, he will. What did Charlie tell the people about Sykes? He told the people that Sykes is the murderer of Nancy, and here he is inside the house. Come and catch him. Let's move to slide number 4 in order to start the questions. Sykes tied one end of the rope to the chimneys. He made a noose at the other end of the rope. He was going to put this noose over his head. He was going to pull the noose down under his arms, but suddenly he turned around. Her eyes, I can see her eyes. Sykes cried. He stepped back and fell off the roof. The noose was round his neck. As he fell, the noose pulled tight, and the murderer hung there dead. Please move with me to slide number 5 in order to check the questions for today. Sykes died in a very strange way. Explain. He tied on the end of the rope, on the chimneys or to the chimneys, and he made a noose at the other end of the rope. He was trying to pull this down through his body, but actually, and when the nose was in front of his neck, he said, her eyes, I can see her eyes, and then suddenly he stepped back and fell off the roof, and the nose was around his neck, and he hung there dead. Whose eyes was Sykes talking about? He was talking about Nancy's eyes. Her eyes, I can see her eyes. Comment. Monks had said these words. No, actually this is wrong answer. It's not monks. Bill Sykes. Please, I want all of you to correct this. Actually, here we are having a mistake here. No, it's not monks, but Bill Sikes. Bill Sikes had said these words to himself right before he died on the roof. He said to himself that, Bill Sikes said these words before, and when he was putting the noose through his body and wanted to put it down his waist in order to go down to the ditch, he just suddenly turned it around and he said, her eyes, I can see her eyes. He felt like Nancy is feeling alive again and she's coming to hurt him exactly as he did for her. And when he stepped back, he just become hung in at the roof of the house. Here is the end of chapter 12 and the end of the story. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you during the story. And I hope that you enjoyed this as I did. Thank you so much. And I'm going to meet you back again in the next session for our curriculum. Thank you so much.